Today we are going to be joined by Ben Ganje of Sun Badger Solar. They have 4 offices in the Midwest, and they are the designated Tesla Powerwall installer and home car charger for electric vehicles. So I'd like to introduce you to Ben. And Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm sure people have lots of questions, lots of concerns. And can we have solar in cold weather?
Well, yes. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that you let me come on and talk a little bit about solar. We talk about solar all day, every day. So we're happy to do it with anybody and anyone who wants to hear. We are, Sun Badger is in Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Florida. And so happy to talk solar, about it here, there, or anywhere in between. So, so your question was, can we do solar in the cold, right?
Yes.
So solar, it works great in the cold, actually. And it's interesting, we were talking about this beforehand, Mary Jo. Electricity actually is more efficient when it is in cooler temperatures. So on a beautiful, sunny February day like we've had here for a couple of days, my solar array at my house is performing at a very high level. Of course, we don't have as many sun hours in February as we do in June, so I'm going to get more energy in June, but per hour I'm producing actually at a very good clip right now. Works really well. They don't work great when they're covered up with snow, so there's some tips that we have to keep your panels clean. If you have easy access to those panels, you can brush them off. Mine are way up on my roof and out of the way, and the snow usually melts off by about noon on the day after a snowstorm and comes sliding down and hits the ground.
Terrific. That's something I learned yesterday, that they actually perform better in the cold than they do in the heat. So who knew? So what would you like to tell us? First of all, how does solar work?
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
Can have an understanding of that.
That's a great place to start. So solar is every time we start talking to somebody, it just, no matter their knowledge level, even if it's an electrical engineer, I always start with the fact that solar is really simple. We put solar usually on the top of a house because that's the best spot to be up and out of the way and get the most sun. So that's a natural fit for that. But we can put it out on the ground as well. Those solar panels are placed up there, and after we install them, they are producing energy as direct current. That energy is then inverted into alternating current, which is the type of energy that we use, that we plug into in the wall. And that energy flows right into your home. And so if you need it on a sunny summer day when you're producing solar energy, you're using the energy that you produce. And the great thing about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Florida, is that if you overproduce, the energy company buys it back from you and spins that meter backwards, and they buy it back at retail rate.
Okay, terrific. When you were talking about it comes in, but solar collects in DC electric, correct?
It's produced as direct current, yeah. All solar panels traditionally, when they're producing electricity, it's as direct current, and that needs to be inverted into alternating current so that it can power our devices.
So you have your panels on the roof, and you'll have a converter or inverter.
Yep.
Where do you put that?
Well, it depends on what type of inversion system that you're going to do. It can either be a string inverter that sits in the garage or in a utility room, or in most of the cases in the Midwest, and what we do, our preference is to use microinverters. And so a microinverter is actually a component that goes right on the panel and inverts it right there. It performs some other functions as well, but like as rapid shutdown and some code compliance functions. But its primary focus is to invert that energy. Here's the reason why that's important: because a string inverter, which they use in Arizona, often in Australia, in Spain, oftentimes they're using a string inverter that has one unit. And that whole unit is in a string. And we use the example of, they're like Christmas tree lights. And so if you take one of those Christmas tree lights out, you know what happens? the
You
whole
go dark.
screen goes down. So that's why we don't use them in the Midwest, because we get snow, and sometimes snow melts off half the panels, or almost all of the panels, and one or two might have some snow on it. They're in a valley somewhere where the sun is not getting to as quickly or as warmly. And so we don't want the whole array to shut down. We want the rest of those Christmas tree lights to work even when one is covered up with snow.
Can you install solar on every roof?
We can install solar on all types of roofs, in all types of situations. The only roofs that we don't install on are roofs that need to be repaired. If it's an old roof, we like to put it on a nice roof. Yeah, we do barns, we do asphalt shingles, metal roofs. We love installing on metal roofs. So yeah, we can do it on just about anything that looks like a composite. Actually, that's maybe a cement tile roof in Florida. There's a whole different category of roof types when we're dealing with Florida versus dealing with Minnesota.
Well, metal roofs are coming in, so I wasn't sure, you know, they're gaining popularity. I wasn't sure how you install on a metal roof.
So it's interesting because most often when we install on a metal roof, we use a clamp that is called an S5 clamp, and it pinches onto the seam. So a standing seam roof, we match the clamp up with the shape of the seam. S5 has dozens of varieties and configurations, and then we pinch it on there and torque it on, and we put the panels right on the rack right there.
Great. What is the lifespan of the panels?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. There's a lifespan, and then there's the warranted life. So the panels that, if you were to ever drive by some real early adopters who put up panels in the 70s, those panels still work. The question is, how efficient are they, or what's their degradation level? Okay. Panels are all going to be warranted for 25 years. It could be that warranty is a production warranty, so it will produce at usually between 85 and 92% of its nameplate rating after 25 years. It's going to continue to produce energy for another 20 years after that, but the degradation is going to increase. So maybe after 40 or 50 years, you might be down to 60 or 70% of the nameplate rating that began with it. The technology, the panels are just very, very robust, very sturdy. I always say it's a technology that just works. We just don't have issues with panels. We don't have issues with them shutting themselves off because it's a chemical process that's happening inside those cells. Electrons are being agitated and it's producing a spark of electricity that's being captured. Those electrons are being captured. So they simply always work.
Have the panels improved in capacity in the past few years, or is the 1975 panel the same as a panel today?
And usually what we're seeing is that every year we're seeing a 2 to 3% increase in wattage. So if a typical residential solar panel in 2019 was producing 340 watts, now in 2021, they may be producing 385 watts.
Okay, great. So, and the technology continues to improve.
Yeah, it does. There's nothing groundbreaking, earth-shattering in the technology that's improving, but it's incremental and it improves a little bit every year. The efficiency increases every year. Yeah.
Do the panels add much weight to a roof?
No, they're relatively light. The panel itself weighs about 40 pounds, and it's about 5.5 feet by 3.5 feet. That's the diameters. So a 40-pound panel on a roof is about 3 pounds per square foot. Okay,
that's great.
Yeah, yeah. They're not very heavy. There are some concerns when we take a look at roof engineering and rafters. We do a normal roof. A recently constructed building is going to have rafters and joists that are 16 inches on center, and that's more than enough.
Okay. What about flat roofs? Can you install on flat roofs?
Yeah, we do. So on a flat roof, because we don't want to lay the panels necessarily flat, and you saw there was one picture where we tip them up. We can either tip them up in this fashion, or actually they're tipped up like that. That is actually, I think, Yeah, those are tipped up on EcoFoot racking. And so when we do a flat roof like that, we don't want to penetrate into the roof. On a pitched roof, we do penetrate right into the joist and secure the racking into that joist, seal it up with flashing. There are 5 points of sealant. We use the same silicone that NASA uses, and it's rated for 50 years. They're very, very leak proof. And it's on a pitched roof, so the water's all flowing down. So it's relatively easy to engineer that so there's no leaks.
I didn't know NASA used silicone. I learn something every day.
But on a flat roof, if you were to penetrate into that roof, water will pool, and eventually it will wear down the sealant and it will leak. So we don't penetrate into a flat roof. What we do is we do ballasted mounted racking. So that means that we call our friends at EcoFoot and say, we want to do it on a flat roof in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tell us what the wind rating is for that area of the world, and we will make sure that we engineer the weight underneath them. They're actually just held down with cement blocks, and we'll engineer it so that they won't move.
So the flat roofs, primarily those would be commercial buildings. Mm-hmm. So is commercial picking up in solar?
It is. You talked, I saw your snippet beforehand talking about the tax credit of 26%. Yes. Commercial qualifies for that same 26% tax credit.
Wow.
And then they also have solar qualifies for accelerated depreciation as well. So there's a program called Makers, and you can depreciate about another 20% of the value. So a business that wants to put solar on their roof to offset their energy costs will get back in the first year up to 46% of the total retail value of the system back.
Wow.
In tax credits. That's not deductions, that's tax credits.
Okay. But still, that's...
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's even better than deductions. It's not decreasing your overall tax burden. It's putting the money that normally the federal government would take, it's giving it back to you.
Wow. So the government wants us to go solar.
Yeah, that's the government's way of spurring renewable energy, particularly solar, is to give a tax credit. It was at 30% a couple years ago. They lowered it to 26%, and it was set to go down to 22% this year. But just before the first of the year, Congress passed a extension to the 26%, and that's where we expect it to stay.
Okay, terrific. Can we talk about trees and canopy a little bit?
Yes.
So let's say in a neighborhood like South Minneapolis or St. Paul, and you have your old trees. Does that affect the solar panels?
Yeah, anything that's going to shade the panels is going to get between production and the sun and its ability to produce. And I know that we had a problem trying to manage solar at your place, Mary Jo, because there was too many trees. Trees are the one thing that we have to be cognizant of. So when we're doing a site assessment, kind of a virtual site assessment, we're looking at the tree cover. If there's too many trees, it's not viable. But it also depends. If there's one tree and it's only covering up a portion of the roof, sometimes it is viable. And remember, in the winter, most of those trees lose their leaves, so the sun will peek through.
Well, I have the world's worst. The most hated trees are silver maple. And they're old, and it's softwood, and it drops stuff all the time. So if I can get an arbor to remove them inexpensively, I will do that.
Yes, and you can roll the expense of your arborist into your solar loan too. So they.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, you said your solar loan. How do people finance this if it's not directly out of pocket?
Yeah, right now, about 80% of our customers finance their system because, frankly, because the cost of money is so cheap right now. And the interest rates on our loans are very, very low. For a home improvement type loan, it's absolutely unheard of. We have a 0.99% solar loan.
Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly. So there's really,
Wow.
We have customers all the time who say, I've saved up, I want to buy solar. And we say, why don't you save your money or invest your money and then just sign up for financing, because it's 0.99% and the interest rate is so low, you're paying so little in interest, and that way you can invest your money in the stock market where it will have a higher performance for you. But to
that
your
I think
point,
is a critical point that would stop a lot of people because they don't know that it can be financed.
yeah, and what's really great, and being in this industry for a number of years, I remember when we could never get a solar finance loan below the cost of your energy bill, and now that happens nearly every time. If you're paying $200 a month to Xcel Energy and you put up solar, you'll probably be paying $170 a month.
Wow, that's a huge savings right there.
And you
So,
own your energy, and then that bill goes away when the loan's done, and forever you have your own solar system producing your energy. I put mine up. I'm in Xcel territory. I put it up 7 years ago, and I always say that for 7 years I haven't paid Xcel Energy any money. They pay me.
hey, that's cause to celebrate. People
Mhm.
need to know all of that. So, what other questions do people have? What hesitations do they have about solar?
The hesitations are usually, I mean, after they get past the fact that, okay, I'm going to be able to buy all of my own energy and it's going to save me money from day one, and there's this tax credit, and there's these incentives that we haven't even touched on. Xcel Energy has one of the best incentives on top of it, on top of the tax credit in the country. The questions then become, what about hail? What about potential damage to the panels?
Right.
And the panels, if you have ever been around a solar panel, you'll know that they're just very, like I said, very sturdy, very robust. They have a hail rating of golf ball size hail, direct hit at 60 miles an hour. In the Midwest, I've never seen a panel break due to hail. The two instances where I've seen a panel actually break are when one of our guys accidentally hit a pallet with a forklift. That will break.
That would do it. Yeah.
And then if you have a ground mount and you spit out a rock out of the lawnmower, that has also done it.
Okay. Okay. Or a tree falling on it.
Tree falling out, yeah. Any of those active nature type things, are obviously covered in your insurance. The other question is, they say, what happens in a windstorm? As long as your roof is on. If your roof leaves your house, the panels are going with your roof. But
Okay.
that's the only thing that there's really nothing that's going to happen to the panels, other than they'll get covered up by snow. But the amount of sun that we produce in January and February is really low, and so for a few days of snow-covered panels, it's not worth it to get up on an icy ladder and try and scrape them off if you don't need to.
No. No. So can we talk about the all-electric house, electric chargers, and the power wall?
Yes. One of the very interesting timing on that too. So batteries and EV chargers are areas that are also things that we install, and we have been talking to a lot of folks about batteries right now. After Texas, the incidents and storms and power outages in Texas, people are very concerned about safety, particularly people with health issues that can't have the power go out for days at a time.
Sure.
And batteries are a great option for that. In Florida, a lot of our homeowners in Florida that have hurricanes, and when a hurricane comes through and wipes out the power in a city, it's sunny a day later or 2 days later, and those solar panels are working, and they could be charging your battery, and you can be running your air conditioning and keeping your food cold and running the microwave and charging your phones, and even have the pool heater on if you have a battery backup. So in Florida, we talk a lot about batteries, but now even in the Midwest, we're talking more about it. The Powerwall, we're a certified Powerwall dealer. That has a lot of Tesla owners want to create the trifecta of being able to have solar, their electric car, and the Powerwall all working in conjunction. And that requires an EV charger, an electrical vehicle charger, which we are happy to install as well.
The battery. Here's what I don't understand is, okay, during a day like today, when we have almost a cloudless sky, it's high performance. So let's say we have the winter and a couple days are dark, you don't have that high performance. Mm-hmm. And if the electric goes out for whatever, let's say there is a tornado, mm-hmm. and the electric goes out, how long will that battery sustain whatever electric charge it has left? Or is that all depending on?
It depends on size. So the think of the battery as like a tank of gas. Like the bigger your tank of gas, the longer you can drive, right? So a battery, if you have a battery with a lot of storage, then you're going to last longer, and it's also going to depend, just like that gas tank, how fast are you driving? So if you're driving 30 miles an hour or driving 100 miles an hour, you're going to use that gas up faster. So with a battery, when you have it fully charged, first of all, you see that storm coming, you can pull, you don't have to charge your battery from the solar panels. You can charge it right from the grid. So if you're worried about the power going out, you charge it any way you can. So let's say a storm's coming in tomorrow morning and I didn't see it till tonight. Overnight, I'm telling my batteries to fill up from the energy grid, and so that they're totally ready to go in the morning. And then it depends on how much energy you're using. If you're firing up your air conditioner all day and you keep your house real cold, that's going to eat up a lot of that battery storage. But if you're kind of in a more of a preservation mode where you're not using a lot of excess energy, then it'll last for a while.
One of the points that they made during the Duluth Energy Conference was that refrigeration in the house, the new refrigerators, are super wide. They're like 4 feet across. And then people will have a second refrigerator in the lower level, and they'll have a wine cooler. So you've got basically 3 refrigerators going, which pulls a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. So would it be smart to unplug some of those appliances that really suck up a lot of energy if you're depending on the wall or the power?
My advice would be to make sure that you have that battery plugged into the wine fridge and then let everything else go.
Good advice. And you won't even know the storm hit.
No, so what we do also, so there's really 2 types of battery applications. One would be critical load. So there's whole home backup. That's the first type, where it's like we calculate how much energy all of your appliances are going to use for X amount of time, and we put in enough battery storage for you to do all of that. Some people want that. It's relatively expensive, but people can do it. The other way to do it is say, hey, what do I really need? I need a fridge with my freezer. I need some lights. I need my water heater and X, Y, and Z. And so we put a smaller battery storage system in with a sub panel with those appliances directly tied right to the battery, so that you can have a critical load that is functioning while the power is out.
So the Powerwall battery and the charger, are those financeable as well with,
yes,
with the panels?
Yep.
So you can finance the whole thing? You
can.
That would be terrific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and batteries are, they're very expensive, but they're also for that customer who, it's really a replacement for a generator, and generators are very expensive. And so batteries are no different. The difference with a battery versus a generator, if you were going to back up your home with a generator because you just didn't want to lose power, you would have to get a propane tank buried in the ground. You would have to have regular maintenance on that generator because it's an engine that has moving parts, that has oil changes and all of that. There's none of that with a battery. It's very similar to your solar panels, where you put them up and then you just let them work. And
well, the other thing with generators, number one, they smell awful.
Yeah.
And they're really loud. So even a very small generator, you can't really work with the generator running because it's overwhelming.
Yes, generators serve a good purpose, but there's some drawbacks to them, and we think that batteries are a better investment because they also protect you a little bit too. If the energy company ever decides to impose a rate hike during day parts. So for instance, in California, they charge more for energy during the day than they do at night.
Right, because of high usage, sure.
Yeah.
And climate, when air conditioners, mm-hmm. when it's noon or 8 o'clock at night, you have different temperatures, of course.
Yeah, and those Powerwall owners in California are charging their Powerwalls at night and then drawing off them during the day.
Actually, I was talking to somebody in California about this, and he said, I've got 2. I got two in my garage right now because California is facing rolling blackouts.
Yeah.
And so throughout the South too, it's not, you know, okay, Texas is the focus, but I'm pretty much assuming that throughout the South we have delayed or, you know, outdated infrastructures, like Puerto Rico when the electric was down forever.
Yep.
So when you install the solar system, you'll have at least a 20-year life to it, or how long can you expect it
It's
to last?
warranted for 25 years, so it will last longer than 25 years.
Okay, terrific. What's the most frequently asked question about solar?
Well, we've covered a couple. Hail is one. Snow is another in Minnesota. We've talked about how solar actually connects with your house. We start with a grid-tied system always in Minnesota because net metering is so advantageous towards the consumer. That means that those companies are required by law to buy your energy. And then if you want if you want batteries, we can also tie the batteries in, but we would still send that solar energy out through the grid because you're getting paid for it. Other frequently asked questions are warranties. We talked about warranties. I think we covered most of them, Mary Jo. You did a good job.
Okay. I always have a lot of questions. Because it's important. I think it's important for people to understand, not just say yes or no, to understand both the advantages and what the responsibilities are. Does solar require any maintenance?
No, it doesn't. That's one of the great things about solar is once it gets up on the roof, you should be able to just leave it there for the life of the system. Mine's been up on my roof for 7 years, and I haven't done a thing with it.
So how do people monitor the effectiveness of solar?
Yep, we install a monitoring app, and then they can look at it right on their phone.
And you can watch how much energy it is, and it's up and down, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and so mine might not be able to show up here very, very well, but you know, I know in real time if there's a cloud in the sky because the energy then will dip, and then as soon as the cloud goes by, it goes back up again.
That's terrific. So thank you so much for being here, Ben. I hope you answered people's questions. So how can people be in touch? Oh, here I have one question. We get in the summer, we get a lot of door-to-door salespeople. What do you advise people, how outside of you being here right now, what should they look for in a reliable company?
Oh, that's a great question. I love this question. So there are a number of companies in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Florida. We deal with different competition depending on which state. What you're looking for is a company that has experience in this industry, that understands what they're doing. There are some that will just decide they want to be in solar, and maybe they have an electrical license and an electrician and decide they want to go solar. But that's the main thing, is to look for a company that's reputable, look at their reviews online, and then ask yourself what company is going to take the best care of it. Because every company will put up panels, every company will invert them and tie them into the meter and take care of your interconnection agreement. But which company is going to make sure that you understand the entire process, communicate with you every step of the way? That's what we do. We've really made our focus on all about nurturing the customer from not only from before we ever talk to them. We try to make our website a resource to customers so they can educate themselves, but then also just trying to educate our staff. We value every week, twice a week, we get together and we talk about what's new in the industry. We answer questions for our newer staff. We just try to make sure that we can answer all the customers' questions and that we're the experts. And there's no reason to fudge the numbers in solar, because everybody that goes solar saves money. And what we want to do is make sure that they understand what they're getting. They understand how to size the system, why it's priced the way it is, and then all the stuff that goes into it after they decide they want to go solar. So permitting, engineering review, interconnections, any incentive applications throughout the process, permitting, all of that. We take care of it all, and we let you know every step of the way what's going on.
That's wonderful. So the next question is the big one. Can you tell people how to be in touch with Sun Badger Solar?
Absolutely. The easiest way is to go to sunbadger.com. We make it very easy for you to not only research, but also to get a hold of us right there. So Sunbadger, SUNBADGER.com. We get asked questions sometimes as to what does the name mean? And we started in Wisconsin, out of Milwaukee. Our founders were from Wisconsin, so they named the company Sunbadger. And so don't hold that against us in Minnesota. But yeah, we
Okay,
are.
we'll call it Sun Gopher here.
Yeah, maybe. I got shot down on a proposal to rename the company Sun Gopher if the Gophers beat the Badgers in football last year.
And you have a great Instagram account?
Yep, we do. We have Sunbadger on Instagram /Sunbadger, or on Facebook, or on Twitter, or LinkedIn as well.
Oh, so we can find you everywhere.
Everywhere.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Maybe we'll come back with another session.
Sounds great, Mary Jo. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.